I'd like to call to order the OSC meeting. If I can have a roll call, please.
Ms. Gonzalez,
Here.
Mr. McBride,
Here.
Ms. Callahan Wozniak, Ms. Hannah, Mr. Riddle, Ms. Leguizamo, President Ewing.
Here. So do want to acknowledge the fact that there are not all the board members present, and we do not have a quorum. However, this is the second time that we have noticed this meeting. The board will be taking no formal action. We won't even be voting to approve the meeting minutes. This is just information. And so as such, because of respect for administration time and community time that have made it a point to be here, it is important that we proceed with the meeting. The board will take formal action at a properly noticed and quorum meeting at a future date. Next Tuesday is the plan. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Board President Ewing. Good evening, board members, superintendent, staff, community members. We have one presentation for you this evening and several information item reports. We do, mic not on?
Test. Mine is good.
Test. Mic on?
No.
Do you have it turned on?
Test. Ours are on.
Mic check.
No. Maybe it needs battery.
All right, good evening. Apologies about that. Staff, community members, board, and superintendent. So we have one presentation for you this evening and several information items and report. We felt it was very important to discuss the status of the Zero Tolerance Work Group and recommendations resulting from those meetings and discussions. I'd ask Mr. White if you could put the presentation on the screen and we can go through it. And we do have staff here ready and available to assist with questions for other information.
And I do
items.
apologize. Can you all in the room hear Deputy Moulton?
Oh.
No. Can we get more volume, please?
And I will speak up as well. Oh.
Not that much, right? Sorry, Mr.
All right.
White.
Well, thank you. So if you could direct your eyes to the screen, Zero Tolerance Work Group has met since some concerns were expressed and some comments were made at a board meeting late in the fall semester. This work group was comprised of community members, staff members, consultants, Waukegan Police Department, Board of Education representatives, as well as union leadership, specifically from the Teachers Union and the Paraprofessional Union. We wanted to highlight a few things that work group discussed with some recommendations so that we can hopefully move forward, reconnect, recalibrate around this particular item, particularly for the benefit of our staff members who may be put in these situations, as well as our students. Could you scroll down, please, Mr. White? So these were some of the work group participants. Again, we have a variety of representatives from the different unions, social emotional, diverse learner, crisis intervention and safety, board representatives, etc., as well as principals. The work group, next slide please. The work group met 4 times this semester, February 15th, February 27th, March 1st, and March 23rd. And I want to go through a few definitions for you all because we really debated a lot about zero tolerance, what that means. And if you could go to the next slide. Zero tolerance is a term that has a specific connotation to it. So our objective was to, based on recent situations that had happened in district, determine if we need a zero tolerance policy. Currently, we do not have a formal specified zero tolerance policy. And if we do need to create such a policy, what do we align it with and reaffirm with the current sentiments on the matter, as well as retrain staff relevant to the letter and spirit of said policy? So this statement is the objective statement of the work group, and this was the focus that the work group had when we started our discussions. And again, based on recent incidents that had happened in the fall semester. If you could go to the next slide. We tried to create a definition for zero tolerance, and I'll just read this for clarity. One which imposes a punishment for every infraction of a stated rule. Zero tolerance policies forbid people in positions of authority from exercising discretion or changing punishments to fit the circumstances subjectively. They are required to impose a predetermined punishment regardless of individual culpability, extenuating circumstances, or history. This predetermined punishment, whether mild or severe, is always meted out. So, if we have staff, and this was articulated very clearly several times in our meetings, feel like they cannot have any physical contact with students and there will be a predetermined punishment for that contact, the most severe punishment in any employment action, which could be termination, that it could impact the way they do their work on a day-to-day basis. That was part of the discussion, and we didn't want to stick with the zero tolerance terminology because that was the definition of the staff members attending, also the representative speaking on behalf of other staff members. So we transitioned to no tolerance, and we looked at two policies specifically, and one has been recently brought forward to the Board of Education to see what those policies states. Next slide, please. And those policies are Board Policy 6048, which is the physical restraint policy and isolated timeout, as well as Board Policy 4112, which is due process for professional staff. And there were some recommendations that were derived from us reviewing the policy and talking about real life situations that are happening in our schools. And the recommendations, if you could go to the next slide, please, ultimately resulted in us saying that we do have some staff members that may not understand the contents of the policy. The policy in and of itself seems sound, but we need to ensure that everybody knows what is in the policy, what the expectations are, what is appropriate physical contact and what is not. So I have the recommendations on the screen for you. I apologize. There's a lot of information there on the small print. But the recommendations are listed as follows. Do not add zero tolerance language to current policy, but rather bolster it with a purpose statement. So we talked about the objective of the group as well as a definition. Additionally, do not create a separate policy for zero tolerance, but communicate, train on, and uniformly enforce existing policy. Consistency is key in this because we have several locations throughout the district where this may be exercised. Next, determine who owns a policy and is responsible for sharing with and training of staff. Once resolved, communicate that ownership broadly throughout the district. So if a staff member has a question or concern about the specific policy, they know specifically who to go to get answers to the questions. Next, enforcing the policy uniformly across the district. That is extremely important. Consistency is key. Reinforcing the policy regularly through management meetings, staff training, and communication channels. This is not a one and done type situation. We constantly have to reinforce through various streams of communication with all stakeholders throughout the district. Next, ensure that the action items within the policy are carried out as written, i.e. tracking all incidents and providing the board with comprehensive biannual reports. So how can we get better if we're not sharing information? Next, send all staff through mandatory verbal de-escalation training while ensuring that the required and desired staff receive physical CPI training. So this particular item was discussed several times. We do have some contractual language with some of our bargaining units that discusses this as already being a requirement, but we don't have that consistently across the board. So that would prompt further discussion, but that is a recommendation of this work group because we want to ensure that all staff members have access to that training resource while they're carrying out their daily duties of their job. Next, to ensure employees do not fall through the cracks as a result of attrition, etc., establish an annual training schedule and cadence. Current staff members need to get the annual training with reminders, and they need a resource guide on who to contact if they have questions, and when new employees come into the district, an onboarding program so they don't have to wait for that next annual cycle. They get it before they go to their job within the district if they're new employees. And last but not least, review the policy periodically to ensure it is still relevant and effective, which is a standard best practice for all of the district policies. So again, this is an update regarding the zero tolerance work group. We do have some work group representatives in the meeting here today. We did have a lot of serious dialogue, conversation, a lot of important conversation. Value and respect everybody's input who was able to share and contribute. But we did want to, again, express the recommendations and the work that this work group had done so we can hopefully move forward with these recommendations and start implementation in our district as soon as possible.
Board of Education, any questions or comments related to the presentation? Ms. Gonzalez?
One thing that I've seen, even in regards to certain incidents that involve some of our staff and students, is that there's almost, I don't know if it would necessarily be a gap, but there's a disalignment in the language that we use, right? We have progressive discipline, we have restorative justice. There's like these different terms that are supposed to be about how we approach incidents and recourse for them. When we talk about incidents that involve our staff, I completely agree and respect the committee's advisory in terms of like, okay, zero tolerance is not what we want to look at. Maybe no tolerance or different language would be more helpful and more training. But I think having a clear district-wide definition of what our approach to discipline in general is, and for not, having our students hear one thing and then our staff, not necessarily hear the same thing. I think I think it would help our students, if that makes sense. Like if we're gonna do something in relation to restorative justice for our students to, say sorry, admit kind of what their incident was, and what they did wrong. I feel like our staff should also be practicing it so that they can model it as well. And I don't see that piece, but that's something that I would be interested in, that we have talked about in relation to certain incidents that I would want to be seen incorporated into that training. And when I see periodically, I would want that to be more specific, right? I think it should happen every semester, because every semester the students come into the classroom. You might have different students. You might have, something happens over a break, whatever. That way it's not really vague. And I could get behind that. That's it.
And with this being a committee meeting, same, if there are any questions from the audience, just raise your hand, and then we'll come around with the microphone. Ms. Lindsay.
So I just have a couple of questions. So the mandatory was in quotes. Can you just detail explicitly why that was in quotes?
Absolutely. So that was in quotes because it's not currently in all of our collective bargaining agreements. So there would be some additional discussions with some of our unions around that particular item. So that is a recommendation of the group, but again, we had our teachers and paraprofessionals represented, which is a majority of the district employees that would be receiving this training.
So then, to be proactive, what actions are we ready to follow through with in the event that one of the collective bargaining units does not agree to sign up for this to be mandatory test or training?
So on a monthly basis, I do meet with all of the district union leadership members, monthly and one group bi-weekly. And these are some of the discussions that we're having when you're talking about disciplinary items as it relates to staff, due process. So we've planted that seed. But again, teachers and paraprofessionals are the overwhelming majority. And both of those presidents were there and acknowledged via the work group discussions that was important and they would support that. And the other groups, they weren't not asked to be there because they're not important, but their interaction with students may not be as much. The exposure may not be as high. But for custodians, cafeteria workers, we want to make sure those are covered as well. So we have planted that seed, and we are anticipating support for that particular item, but that's why it was in quotations.
Okay, but it sounds like there's no current plan should someone say, no, we're not going to have this as part of our mandatory training.
Yeah. So we did not pre-impact bargain that change before the committee provided the recommendation.
Okay. And then I think there's one word that was missing throughout that entire summary of points, and that is bias. So how are we going to ensure that while we are training all of our staff on this policy, that bias is going to go hand in hand, and that we are assessing students' actions and not their behaviors or perceived intent?
No, that is an excellent question. Our coordinator of crisis intervention and safety was part of the discussions. Bias is something that did come up in the discussions as it relates to how we identify certain behaviors and not having preconceived notions or predetermination why something is happening. So that is something, because we also have to do self-reflection. That's part of the training. It's not what you're doing, it's also what I'm doing and how I'm reacting. What is impacting me in this situation that may impact how I react to a situation? So those were part of the discussions. That is part of the training that part of the mandated training we're gonna be asking staff to do.
Okay, wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get that later. Thank you.
And another thing I think that excited me about the work group, and then I'll close with that because I know we got things we want to get to, and I know it's not an official recommendation from the committee, but I hope the board will consider it, and that is related to the importance of us coming around the table. You had various different perspectives, groups, responsibilities within the organization, and I think we got somewhere because you had those very voices. You had individuals that understood the teacher's perspective, those that understood the parents' perspective, those that were looking at it from their own responsibilities. And so I know we had talked about, as Mr. Moulton mentioned, as a part of his responsibility, he meets with each of the bargaining units, but how often are we all at the table discussing a topic and coming up with a solution? So this is something that we want to see, I believe we want to see continue, because what we talked about is there were some core things that we weren't able to address. It's because the elephant in the room is I was the one who said zero tolerance. I still don't think you should be able to punch a kid. There are very few things that you can convince me in which that would be okay. But I also understood the importance of making sure that our teachers and our staff understand that it's not a gotcha, and that we're in this together is because they are also under an immense amount of pressure, right? And that they are seeing student behaviors in an escalating manner that they have not. And so we have to be able to provide supports to our staff as well. And so there are some things and some conversations that need to continue, but out of the policy, the recommendation is let's start with ensuring everybody, regardless of position, right, goes through de-escalation, as we all have a responsibility. So thank you to those committee members that are in the room. I see multiple. If you are okay with it, just wave your hand so people can identify who you are. Thank you. Thank you. Chat. Thank you. But I do appreciate that. All right, we now have our information items, which are there.
Mr. Ewing, if I could interject quickly, because
Yes.
we have a lot of students in the room this evening. If it's okay, we do have our parent-student handbook updates. Because we have so many students here to support that agenda item that's on student achievement, I would like to ask if we could go ahead and do that presentation now, so we don't keep them too late,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moulton. Good evening, community members, board president, superintendent, board members. I've had the distinct privilege, I'm gonna lower this a little bit. I have the distinct privilege and just pleasure of, since February, to meet with multiple stakeholders and focus groups to get input on our next year's student handbook. And as you can see, we've met with multiple stakeholders. And if we go to the next slide, please. And as I traveled and I met with these different focus groups and listened to what they had to say about how can we make the student handbook much more accessible, much more student-friendly, much more easier to navigate. Some of the key things that came out of those recommendations through those conversations were things such as they wanted to make sure that they highlight the students. Some of the recommendations that were around, go to the next slide, please, were around making it more student-focused, making it more manageable and easier to get to different topics, making it much more easier for our families and our students to get the supports that they need. And so out of the feedback that I received through those focus groups, if we go to the next slide, please, there were 4 key changes that were actually voted on and approved by the PTAC, the Teacher Advisory Committee? Huh?
Yeah.
What was that? What? Am I echoing? No, right?
No, I said it to help
Oh.
PTAC the name.
PTA, yeah. Parent Advisory Committee. So on Thursday, last Thursday, we went ahead and voted on it. And man, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for how we set the trajectory now where we're at. And these modifications are really just four that we wanted to focus on. One is the change of the front cover. Two was the change of the actual name of our handbook. Three was the format and layout. And also the last one was the actual highlighting the support for our students and our families. Okay. I want to begin by letting you guys know about the change of our front cover. In collaboration with Mr. Cicerelli, we wanted to make sure that we highlighted our students from the get-go when it came to the front cover of our student handbook. And so in collaboration with them, moving forward, every year we will have a different front cover that was designed by our seniors, and that will be a legacy project for them. So I'm going to allow Mr. Cicerelli to come up and just share a little bit about that process, because this is something that we want to make sure that we highlight and we continue to bring to the forefront of our minds and the reasons why we're here, and that is the most prominent feature, which is our students. So Mr. Cicerelli, please come up and share a little bit.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, board, superintendent, staff, parents, anyone else I forgot. Good to see everyone. It feels good that the air is on in here finally. Some of you already know I'm the Career and Technical Education Coordinator for the high school, and we were commissioned to redesign the handbook cover. We have a photography teacher who does graphic design with his students. He's an excellent teacher. We'll have his slide up in a moment. And he and I worked together to develop a project. It's a special project that the students actually did where they got to design the handbook cover. They were given pictures of all of our pre-K through 12 events, students, all those different events that our young people and our young adults go through throughout a school year. They took those. We had some parameters, what the former handbook cover looked like, what needed to be there in terms of the legal things, the titles, and the superintendent, Lake County, and our district. And we had 5 people, 5 takers, 5 students, because it was a special project. Now, this is something as a sidebar that we would like to put in the curriculum for next year. And that way it's an entire class wide. So what I did in working with the teacher is you could see that I developed a simple Likert scale. So each cover got to go through a survey that went through juniors and seniors at Washington campus. And the juniors and seniors got to rate from 1 to 5. Looking on the left, and this was in Spanish and English, is the handbook not creative looking? Is it not professional? Is it not capturing the student experiences? And over to the right, a high note 5, it's very creative, professional looking, captures the student essence. So that was very exciting. So if we want to move to the next slide, this is what we have currently. This is what was used in our current year. And it's a start. It's okay. It says exactly what it is. But in doing everything we do with the meat of what we do, we also want to image ourselves to bring ourselves into 2023, 2024, and really highlight what our students are and what they do and what we do as a district. So next slide might be my teacher. All right, this is Mr. Ben Schulman. This is his 10th year in the district. He is a CTE teacher. He teaches graphic communications, digital photography, and he is at Washington campus currently. So I do thank him. He's not able to be here tonight, but he was excellent working with this project. We do have 2 of our 5 students here tonight, so I am going to call them up, but if we want to go, we're going to go slide by slide. But take a look again. We had 5 participants, and the first one by Jacob Rise, this is what he developed. You could see he took pictures from different age groups, developed a handbook based on what we had before. If we want to look at the next slide, the next student, Proceed Zarate Diaz. She also had a collage, really cool, interesting part, because part of the goal is, to get our students graduating and get them on for their future endeavor. So that was excellent. Next one we have up also, she had 2 submissions. Again, this is the first year, so we'll start working on the details. So she also had a different type of collage with this one. And then the next one, Aldo Mendez, kind of had a nice arrow theme, again with pictures from the different age groups from the district, so very exciting. Next one we had created by Asada Wright. Again, different pictures of different age groups, and again, interesting that in the center is one of our graduates getting a hug, moving into their future endeavors, all the pathways that we are preparing them for as young leaders and adults. And then the next one, Asada also had another one, another collage, exact handbook cover, and then there should be one more. Mariana Vasquez Serrano had this one. Oh, this might have been her second one or the first one. So we did put these through a vote, and then tonight we do want to recognize the students that are here. We had these framed. Mr. Tim Briner, thank you very much, is over there for having these framed. Print Shop printed them for us, did an excellent job as they always do. So what we're going to do is our two young people who are in attendance, Aldo, if you want to come up, and Mariana, if you want to come up, please. Okay. Aldo, if you want to stand behind yours. Mariana, if you want to stand behind yours.
Asada's here too.
Asada, where you at? You didn't check in with me. Oh, come on up. All right, we're gonna do a picture. Very exciting. They worked very hard on this, and again, this was a special project. They did not receive any extra credit. This was purely on their own time with the teacher as well. Okay. Now, equally important is that we would like to announce the winner out of the 5, and since we have 3 of the 5 tonight, our first place winner who will go with their handbook for next year is Aldo Mendez. So congratulations, Aldo. And with that, you did get a prize. $100 check from the district to thank you for your time and efforts. We thank you. And then Asada, $50, and Mariana, $50 to thank you for your time and efforts. Thank you so much. Put that towards some good school supplies or a good pair of summer shoes that are coming up soon, and congratulations. So thank you for your time. Sorry if I took up too much, but we will definitely make this a more formalized process for next year. And we're also going to hang these at Lincoln Center and at Washington campus. So thank you for your time.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Cicerelli. Guys, great job. Great job. I think that is fantastic. That is one amazing step towards the right direction, I believe, with our handbook. Now, with that itself, we also have some other changes that we're doing, modifications that we're having to the student handbook. One of which is changing the actual title itself from Parent-Student Handbook on Rights and Responsibilities to Student Support Handbook itself. That way, it sounds a little bit more approachable. In addition to that, our next modification that we agreed on and we voted on and we said yes to was the actual layout, the format of it. Some of the feedback that I received was that there's a lot of good information, but it's kind of hard to get to. And so in the past, as you can see on the left-hand side, we had 4 sections. On the right, if you notice, we have a long list of good information. So part of that is how can we change it and make it more accessible. So if we go to the next slide, please. I divided it up into 5 sections, and these 5 sections, as you can see, is much more approachable. We have a welcome section, we have a connect section, engage, rights, and be informed section. And if you notice, there's blue writing because that is what's actually being changed. Now the good part about that, excuse me, the good part about it is that what we really wanted to focus on is not so much removing content. We did not remove any content from our handbook, but rather just simply making it more accessible for our families and for our students, even for our staff, as they navigate through that. So for example, if I wanted to go ahead and find something for a student, I could just simply click on student attendance and it'll go straight to the section where it says student attendance. Okay? And the next, whoa, you're going fast, go back. Okay. The other modifications that we have with that is highlighting the supports for our families and our students up front. So if you could recall, we have a lot of blue right in the beginning under connect, and in that section we wanted to highlight the law that actually says that there's certain things that need to be behind the student ID by law. And so what we did was we just simply brought that to the forefront of the handbook so it could be more accessible, so they could get the supports they need. And that's beginning with the National Suicide Prevention Line. And so this is what they will see right in the beginning, so it could be more accessible for them. The crisis text line, excuse me, mental health support, so they could scan the QR code and get that information not only for themselves but anyone that may need that support, along with the family support calling 211. If we go to the next slide and the next one. And so with that being said, the big idea was simply how can we make this more accessible, much more approachable, much more user-friendly. And I believe that after much listening to a lot of the students and the many other focus groups, we got that. One thing I do want to share with you that really pushed this particular section of the student handbook was in one of our focus group, a student rose their hand and said to me, the middle schooler, Mr. Dupuy, there's a lot of information in here, but I'm someone who struggles with mental health, and there's nowhere in here that I could get to it faster. I don't know where's that. Point it to me. And that conversation really pushed everything up forward. I believe that we need to continue to have our student as a prominent feature of our district, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And so with that, I still want to go ahead and congratulate Aldo for his award. Congratulations, Aldo. And that is it with my presentation. Thank you so much. Questions?
When is it going to be published?
The next step in this is it has to go through our first reading, and after the readings and approvals, then we'll go live. And I'm really excited for that. I'm just thankful that everyone involved, it wasn't just me, there were other people involved with creating this, and I'm really excited to see what's going to come out of it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys, especially the students.
And I mean, I do see we have other students present as well. So if we would want to continue with the BAM presentation to
Absolutely.
get through that as well. And wow.
Absolutely. Dr. Nall, would you mind? Thank you, Mr. Ewing.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Superintendent, Board President, members of the board, community, and colleagues. The academics team is here this evening to request the renewal of our Youth Guidance BAM WOW program. This will be year 4, if approved. This will be year 4 of the partnership with the program. One of the things that we are seeking that is different from previous years is that we are seeking a 2-year contract with Youth Guidance as opposed to a 1-year contract. Part of the reason for doing so is from a recruitment standpoint, it really provides an advantage to both BAM and WOW to be able to hire and attract candidates if those candidates know they're going to be serving Waukegan students for more than 1 year at a time. The program has had some significant impacts over the course of the time that it's been here. As you know, we have continued to expand the program since we brought it into the district in 2021. We started out with BAM in year 1 with six counselors. In year 2, we expanded the BAM program from 6 counselors to 9 counselors, and we brought in WOW with 6 counselors as well in year 2. Currently in year 3, we have 9 counselors for both BAM and WOW. the proposal was for 9 counselors, both BAM and WOW. We do have a couple of vacancies in the program currently. So our 2-year request is that we continue with the current agreement for 9 BAM counselors and 9 WOW counselors that would serve our middle schools and our high schools campuses. We do have representatives from BAM and WOW with us this evening, as well as BAM counselors from Benny and from Smith, and students from Benny and Smith as well. Attached to the board item, you will see not only the request, the statement of work proposals for each program, but you'll also see the mid-year impact report, which is the most recent impact report that we have for the program. In that report, you can look and see the number of students that are being served. You can look at the breakdown of students by campus, by grade, by ethnicity. One of the things that really separates BAM and WOW from other organizations is not only do they provide a lot of opportunities for our students inside the classroom, but they go above and beyond for our students outside of the classroom as well. There's a wide range of activities that they always provide for our students to experience outside of the school setting, which makes them even more a part of the culture of our buildings in our district. So our request, again, is to renew the contract with Youth Guidance for the 23-24 school year and the 24-25 school year.
Any questions from the Board of Ed or no? Go ahead, Mr. McBride.
Well, I'm not thoroughly assuring that the district is getting the impact that it should for the money that we're spending for this program. I remember when it first came, we looked at the film and I seen what they were supposed to be providing, and I know in my mind when we first asked them to come, it was for dealing with discipline, dealing with insubordination that we're dealing with now in the schools, dealing with giving our kids some morals and values to keep them from walking the halls, and making sure that our kids are coming to school, the attendance is good. And I'm not seeing those things happening. Also, you still haven't got a full staff yet from the time that you started. And I question, you said you were looking for people around Waukegan and you couldn't find them, and that's highly unacceptable for me. And you were saying that you couldn't find them because they had to meet certain criteria. I don't think there's a criteria for an adult to be able to talk to a young person to give them a sense of understanding from right from wrong. And those are the things that what bothers me. And the last time I talked to you, I said the kids that really need it, it was said to me, well, we can't, all we can do is try to get those kids there, and they don't come, and nothing we can do. And that's not acceptable for me, because when that doesn't happen, we get suspensions, expulsions, and it's being said by some of the members, that affects me in the community when the kids don't get what they're supposed to get here. And when we provide programs for that to happen, it don't happen, for me, it's not acceptable. Just put it that way.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. And we do have, this year has been the year that we've had the most counselors staffed at our schools. So currently BAM has 3 vacancies of the 9, and WOW only has 1 vacancy of the 9. So the program is almost fully staffed. We did have 1 BAM counselor that was promoted internally that was here, and he's been promoted within the organization itself. So throughout the year, we did have at one point 15 of the 18 vacancies that were filled. In terms of the recruitment, I can let the program coordinator speak to the recruitment efforts. The program is voluntary, you are correct. The student has to want to be a part of the program, and they don't force students to be a part of the program, which I think is part of the investment that the student commits by committing to the program. That's the investment the student has as well, and the parent. So I will let them speak to some of the recruitment efforts. If you did get a chance to look at that mid-year report, you can see the number of students, again, that are currently in the program as well. I did have a chance to survey principals about the program in terms of their satisfaction with the program. Of the 9 principals that were surveyed, 8 of the 9 highly recommend that the district renew the contract with Youth Guidance. And I can share those survey results with the board at the conclusion of tonight's meeting. I have Darwin Gordon here from BAM and Juliet from WOW.
Good evening. Before I speak on recruitment efforts, my counselor Malcolm Smith is from Jack Benny, and I think he would like to address what you said, Mr. Jeff.
How you doing? I'm Malcolm Smith, the counselor at Jack Benny. My principal is Isaac Kirkwood. I was here last year when you said something about the students who didn't volunteer, who really needed our help. So this year, even though some of the students haven't signed up and had permission, I've been seeing them 5 times. I have one-on-ones with them. They might not be in my groups, but whatever situation goes on in my school, if they need somebody to come and help, I'm there. I won't turn a student down just because I don't have a consent form or something like that. We're dealing with everything that comes into school at Jack Benny. Our staff is together at our MTSS meetings. We are targeting students that the board says are tier 3 or who have 504s or whatever is going on. And we have significant improvement in our school, and we have been winning attendance belt. We were holding the attendance belt for the end of last year, and we got it back. So we are working on all those things that you're concerned with. Believe me, we are hearing you, and we are acknowledging what you're saying, and we're working on it.
Thank you.
And that same thing is happening through all the campuses. And at one point, up until October, we were fully staffed at BAM. We just had a guy resign. We had 2 people resign and 1 promotion. So we are tremendously looking towards candidates. And I will tell you, everybody that is hired for BAM is from Waukegan or Lake County. They are. And 2 of them sitting right here right now. Yeah, he moved here from Chicago because he was so involved with Jack Benny. As far as recruitment, for recruitment for counselors, we have a job fair on June 8th. It's going to be held at the Waukegan Public Library. And our requirements are basically for BAM, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree in social services, because the BAM program is not just sitting down and talking to a student. We have a clinical aspect behind it. The cognitive behavioral therapy aspect is what helps changes the attitudes and the behaviors. So we need people who have some type of clinical skills or some type of background that is able to be trained in that clinical area. So it's not just sitting down and listen to the student. Yeah, I agree. Anybody could do that, and everybody should. But when we look at the clinical aspect, that's when we look for the requirements.
And I just want to add a little to it. I know you said anyone can do it, but we want to make sure who we're sending into our schools. We don't want to send anybody into our schools to work with our students. And I think that's where we come in. We're screening candidates, and as we're screening candidates, we're making sure not only are they a good fit for the BAM and WOW program, but that they're a good fit to go into these schools and to work with our young students. And I think that's the most important thing. I know I have a hiring team committee, and we have hiring team committees, and we are very intentional about ensuring that the candidates we put into schools are good candidates to work with our students. And then if they're not, we're just not putting anyone. We could have had all the positions filled. I can tell you right now, I've interviewed several people, but they just weren't a good fit for schools, or they just may not have enough experience working with students. So we do have a screening process, and we want to make sure that every candidate that we put in their school are great candidates, because I believe our students deserve the best.
Thank you, and then same
Yeah,
for
thank you.
any community members at this time. I got Mr. Vukovic.
Thank you. I was wondering if somebody could explain what the 20% indirect costs are that are included in the proposal.
I don't know if it's
Yeah.
these.
Yeah, so that is for like different departments that support the programming. So like for the, I don't know, Shakira, if you could come and speak a little bit more about that, but like our EQI department, and I'll let her speak more on that. That's what, she's our director.
Hello, thank you, Shakira Richards. Nice to meet everyone. Thank you for allowing us the chance to speak. But more of the overhead support that we get. So we have a research department, and we have a liaison that handles our work with that. So it's more of the overhead support that comes with our counselors and our team. Program operations support, research support, HR, things like that.
And is that 20%, is that standard with all your contracts?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. So, again, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you guys for coming and presenting. I see we had some BAM students who are also present, so that's why I wanted to make sure that I allowed the opportunity, because I know students do have school tomorrow, and we want to make sure that they are getting there and keeping up with that attendance.
I appreciate it, and I will follow up and send the board the survey results that I sent to the principals. Ask them a number of questions about the program in general, their satisfaction with it, how the program collaborates with their student support teams, and some of the other just anecdotal information about the program, things that they're happy with. I asked a question about if there's any areas that they think the program needs to improve. So I'll share that feedback with the board. I'll share that feedback with youth guidance as well. But the large majority of our principals are very happy with the program. They're very content with the services that are being provided. The comments you'll see in the survey, the comments alone just talk about the invaluable and immeasurable aspect of the program that it's having on their students in their schools.
I have another question too.
Go ahead, Ms. Gonzalez.
Or comment. In addition to that, Dr. Note, can you include, I know that, the survey data is generally positive, but if we can have data associated with attendance records and like going from one grade up, so that we see the progress of our students in the programs, I think that would, help us be champions of the program, because I will tell you, I had reservations about the program at the beginning and I held it over. But I'm not against this program, because every single student that I meet says that they love it. And when it comes to promotion and graduation, when all the kids wear their stoles, I could see how much it means to them. But I think we need that data, not just like the 95% positive survey results.
Sure. Yes.
Doctor, I think that's a great segue. Would you like us to hear from one of your students? I see we have a lot of students in.
They're here.
We don't.
Do
One
any
of
of you want to
them, one of them
volunteer to
want to
come
come
up?
up and tell us about your experience with BAM or
They're
WOW?
looking away.
Come on up, buddy.
He said, "I'm going."
We got you. Just introduce yourself and just talk about your experience with the program.
So my experience with the
It's okay.
You got it.
Great first, okay? And we'll go from there.
Can I go sit down?
What's that?
Go sit down.
You can do it. You can do it. We got you. Come on, we got you. Your name, your school, your grade, and everything. Your band counselor's here to help you too.
My name is Abdiel Lopez Vidro. My experience with the program has been good so far. We've been having fun times and also talking about things that we have to do. So
You got it. You got it. It's okay.
Thank you for volunteering.
Hi, my name is Jesse. I go to Jack Benny Middle School. I want to say when I first joined the program, I didn't think it was going to stick with me. It didn't really, I only joined to really escape a class that I didn't like, I'll be honest. But really, this program has opened my eyes to many things. We talk about many establishments that we like. There are many codes to the program that we learn for ourselves, for our safety, and a lot of boundaries that we set after joining the program. I think that one of the best things when you join the program is that you think that it's not gonna stick, but throughout the program, I've seen like moments that we really had fun and real serious moments where we got to talk, and my counselor would know about that because we have all that are in our counselor's program have shared something that has at least happened in our daily life or school life that really affected us or bothered us, and we have always been able to tell our counselor that. And I'm really thankful that you guys are sticking with the program, maybe, but this has really opened up like this has really opened up my eyes, and I hope I'll be able to join BAM in high school. Thank you.
I'd like to say to the superintendent, the school board, to parents and staff and all who are present, I'm Andre Allen. I'm a BAM counselor at Smith Middle School, and it is a great pleasure and honor to be a part of BAM, to be a part of Youth Guidance. I think that Youth Guidance is one of the greatest organizations in the world, and I'm really proud to be a part of BAM. I love the values that BAM stands for and that we try to instill in the students in terms of self-determination, integrity, positive anger expression, a respect for womanhood, visionary goal setting, and accountability. Instead of just blaming others, you take responsibility and a determination to reach your goals. Now, a miracle doesn't happen with every student, but it's a growing process. I remember, Mr. Bright, a conversation that we had, and you indicated that one of your problems was that some of the students who should be in BAM are not there, and that those are some of the students you see. And I said, well, if we didn't have BAM and WOW, then you could be seeing even more students. So we are having an impact, and I'm proud of our guys. And thank you, Waukegan School District 60 for having the BAM and WOW program. Thank you.
Any other students? Last call. They weren't planning on speaking.
We're not
so,
scary.
Yeah, they weren't planning on speaking. They just we're here for support. So, thank you, Jesse. And I messed up your name the first time. I'll probably mess up again. But thank you for coming up and speaking this evening. So,
what I want to do is say thank you all for the presentation. One thing that I do want to say for the group and for the board as we move through the rest of our presentations is the Board of Education spends a ton of money on these resources. And one of the things that has been frustrating as a board member is the allocation of funds and resources and then the utilization of said resources, right? People will recall millions in hand sanitizer and then being told by teachers that they don't have hand sanitizer in the classroom. But we're talking about adding to the warehouse for all of the supplies. And this is one of those things where it is a $2 million investment by this district. I think our students are worth it. I think they deserve it. But it doesn't matter how much we put if we are not utilizing. We talk about paper. We have to be collaborative. The organizations that we partner with have to be collaborative. Those that are in the school have to be collaborative. There has to be this idea that it's all hands on deck because our students need it and they deserve it. And so while we'll take under consideration, I appreciate the reporting, I appreciate the responsiveness as you guys we've worked on developing our relationship with BAM and WOW, but I do say that to everybody is with or if or when the board votes to keep this program, we got to make sure, just like I talked about everybody being around the table, everybody's around the table to figure out how we're supporting all of our kids. And so I've seen the work that both BAM and WOW have done. As Mr. McBride said, we're struggling with hiring. We should be working with and supporting one another. We have over triple-digit vacancies in our district, right? And so as we are talking about organizations, we want to make sure that we are working together, utilizing our resources. I have a database. I have people that live in Lake County, Waukegan, North Chicago. Let's have a conversation about how we can make sure that we are supporting you if this contract is renewed. And I appreciate every student that came out and for vocalizing and for those who just sat there and support. And thank you to the BAM and WOW team for coming out and supporting as well. With that, we're going to go back to our operations committee meeting and continue. So, those who are in the audience, as well as Board of Education, we are going to run through these items. If you have a question, just raise your hand. I'll call out the letter. So these had attachments, they're there for information. 5A is the facility use manual update. Any questions related to that, Board of Ed community? B, facility use for nonprofit organization renewal. I think this is a good thing. I love that we've gotten into this practice. We want extended year, extended day. Partnering with our nonprofit community is how we get there. These are taxpayer schools. They should be used as such. 5C, Brookside roof replacement proposal. From another good thing. D, 2023 paving projects. Another good thing. Outdoor classroom. Like to see that that's moving forward. F, purchase of video surveillance cameras at McCall Elementary. G.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't like the camera.
I know. And that's the comment, doesn't like the cameras. Yeah. So then we got G. Then we got H, open gate safety demonstration. I'm sorry, that was H. I apologize. I, attendance at 2023 MCEL National Convening. J was attendance at the 2023 National School Safety Conference. K is the Transportation Contract Award, Illinois Central School Bus Company, and the years are listed there, so through the 2026. L, renewal of Pace Regional Transportation Authority Agreement, 1 year. M, Safeway Transportation Renewal. N, Andrew Cook Electronic Sign. O, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yep.
On the signs, after this one, how many electric signs will the schools have? Are they all new now?
I would need to verify that, Ms. Gonzalez. I believe we have one more, but we'll need to verify.
Okay. They look good, but, you know.
Use them.
Yeah, use them. Yes, please.
Go ahead,
Can you
Mr. Big
okay?
Man.
I would like for us to dig in and take a look at how much money we're spending for transportation, moving kids around the district.
Any specific
For Safeway
question,
or
or you
Illinois
just?
With Safeway.
So Safeway.
And Top Line, because I think they're brothers that own both companies. But I just we need to take a look at that because we moving kids around the district quite a bit, and also too, I just from my knowledge, sometime I think we might be paying them when the kids are calling in and not going, and that happens quite a bit. I just think we need to take a look at it. That's all.
So the proposal is for 1.5 million, which is a 3% increase, 3.5% increase. So we can talk, Mr. LeBaron, and come back with specific questions that Mr. McBride has. Yeah, of course. And I'm apologize. Can you wait for the microphone?
Good evening. The Safeway Transportation is for McKinney-Vento and our outreach students. I was speaking with Mr. Dupree today. He's actually doing an audit of all of our students. He has a new system in place where he's verifying all of our students to make sure they do qualify, which will in turn help the impact of our Safeway contract to hopefully decrease. And then myself, along with purchasing, is working on a new system to better regulate their billing so we know what we're getting billed for and what for. So there are plans in works before this contract is in full effect. I've already spoke with them to let them know we have expectations moving forward, but we are working on it.
Thank you, and we'll still bring back specific if you got questions, but thank you for that, Ms. Williams. We were at N.O. floor finish and equipment purchase for the summer of 2023. P, purchase of operation fleet vehicles. No questions from the committee or the board. Q, Clark teaching staff, common space furniture. Glad to see this moving forward. R, the Morgan HR Inc. contract amendment. Questions from the board or community. S, parking lease agreement at 216 West Madison Street. Any questions? T, FY23 domestic water heater replacement at Brookside High School. And this is one, just a brief one. Is this just necessary, or will this improve? I know when we have student board members, sometimes they talk about hot water. It's an old building. It has to travel a long way through pipes. Does this improve that at all, or is it just maintaining the status quo?
So it is a little bit of both. We did have a failure at the beginning of the year. We prioritized the kitchen area for this particular item, but we do need to replace it. We've had, as I said, failures, components. We've had some previous approvals on this item. This is actually the water heater itself. So we will see some improvements, but again, this item we've kind of had to piecemeal this school year. We need to do this replacement. Restrooms, kitchen areas, priority areas.
All right, U, assistant principal benefits recommendation. So those items have been presented. That information is there. And any questions from either the board or community? Yeah, the description was, I get what you're saying, Ms. Vukovic, but if you want to speak to that, Mr. Moulton.
Yes, thank you for the question. So to help explain, currently our assistant principals throughout the district, they do not receive benefits equal to what we've recently approved for our coordinators, academic chairs, assistant directors. I believe the last 3 years, and we also did it earlier this school year. So this would increase those benefits for health, dental, and TRS contributions on behalf of the district for our current assistant principals. This value is based on 19 people who are currently serving in that capacity.
And can you just state the total amount, the impact for the record?
Absolutely. The total impact is estimated based on the 19 individuals currently in this position, $194,592.74. That is separated by TRS markup of $139,129.46 and family health and dental contributions of $55,463.28.
Deputy Moulton or Superintendent, this is something that I've been trying to practice. What is the why?
The why is so that we can cast a larger net when we have assistant principal vacancies, but also to ensure that we can retain our current assistant principals, which in many cases are the pipeline to our principalships in our district or other leadership positions within our district. Retention strategy breaks down to.
Mr. Vukovic. Nick, can you get the microphone, or whoever's in back?
If I could just take what the superintendent just said and insert the word teacher instead of principal or assistant principal, that seems to be the problem. I heard somebody up there say that we've got triple-digit vacancies and we can't retain teachers, we can't keep staff. We need to be being creative on how we're going to compensate people that deal with our kids on a frontline, day-to-day basis.
Ms. Lindsay?
Maybe it's just my memory, but I thought the point of it was to make it equitable across all APs in the district because some were getting these benefits and others weren't.
Previously, the directors at the high school were labeled directors, and during the transformation plan, the high school principals came together and said the director position was very confusing when they were trying to attract candidates. So they redefined that to be assistant principals. At that time, those directors had health benefits that were attached to that title. And when the reclassification of that position went to assistant principal, that benefit did not follow that title, assistant principal. So there has been some conversation on would the benefit follow the assistant principal because the benefit was under the director name. And so in those discussions, that is what brought this conversation about. But as we dug deeper and started to look at if we offered that only to our high school, which also was a retention strategy, and that's why it was also attached to the director position previously, that it would be inequitable for all of our assistant principals within our district. And in creating a pipeline for future leaders or promotions within the district, we really, really do look at that assistant principal group. And so that is why when we went back and looked at it all, we said it was more equitable to offer those health benefits to all the assistant principals in the district. And that's why we are making this recommendation.
So to boil that down, that means if we want to retain our staff, it needs to be equitable practices in this district.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I do, for the individuals that were impacted, I know that was one of the concerns I had. It wasn't that we shouldn't do it. It was that if we did it, it should impact all assistant principals. When we changed our positions, titles, those have consequences. And so I want us to make sure that we are thinking, and I see Ms. Poe. I want to make sure that we are thinking of what we're doing when we're making those decisions, because they do have a financial impact. I will agree that this should be a retention strategy. I do know that when we looked at our assistant principals, we've created a more equitable system in that we are not providing a flat entry rate. And now with these benefits, I think that we will be able to attract and retain talent. So I definitely support this measure. I'm glad that we got here. There was confusion as people thought that I didn't support it. My comments were always around the fact that if we were going to do it for one AP, we should do them for all. And I think that the retention strategy that Mr. Vukovic brought up related to, what are we going to do for all employees? I think that's the conversation. It boils down to money, and we are looking at, and it's not just money, right? This is not a direct payment to individuals, but it does help their bottom line. All right, the other items that are there have been submitted for reports. There's the Yeoman Creek Solar Lease Extension request. We'll be asked to take formal action on that.
So that is currently under review, Board President. You will be asked to take action on that. I would not say you'd be asked to take action next board meeting, but at some point in the near future, as we investigate that further, you will be asked to take action on that. Sure. So Mr. Vukovic asked about the delay. So there were two specific delays that were identified by BQ Energy. One is just market conditions since 2020 COVID, equipment lead times, equipment costs, and then the other one was tax exemptions because they're trying to become part of the enterprise zone for this particular project. So because of increasing costs, they believe some of the tax exemptions on the materials will need to assist with funding the project. Because of these impacts, they are requesting an extension up to June 28th of 2024 as an energization date for the solar project. We were hoping that would have been off the ground and active at this point, but again, not much action there. BQ Energy has been working diligently on this, and we've stayed in contact with outside counsel, Ms. Vanderbroek's office specifically. But we did want to bring this forward as information as we recently received this, and we're going to investigate this because it will require board action in the future.
Mr. Vukovic.
As far as that second piece about the enterprise zone, as far as the second piece about the enterprise zone, that's really irrelevant at this time because state law changed last year that gives any energy developer the same tax consideration whether or not they're in an enterprise zone. So, you know, if they haven't completed that, they're wasting money at this point.
Sure. No, thank you for calling that out. So that's something we received as recently as Friday. So we do need to look into this further. At this point, we're not seeing any reason not to support the extension. But again, bringing it forward as we recently received this, and I believe some of the district staff, legal counsel, myself, as well as even the superintendent received a copy of their extension request.
I almost don't want to say this publicly, but I am. And if we do not renew said lease, can we go back to market? It's because this was something that I've been excited about now for 4 or 5 years that has not come to fruition. And so if we're waiting around and allowing them to lease land that somebody else has the funding and would be willing to expend the money and do what needs to be done, are we exploring all of our options?
So we are. To answer your specific question on if that is an option at this time, we would need to follow up on that as we are currently, but we will take that back as part of the consideration.
Thank you. With that, I would like a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Mr. McBride.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. All right, if we'll take a 5-minute break and then finish with our student achievement meeting. 420 of 2023 Student Achievement Committee meeting. If I could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Riddle, Mr. McBride, Ms. Hannah, Ms. Callahan Wozniak, Ms. Leguizamo, Ms. Gonzalez,
Yes.
President Ewing.
Yes, I also again want to acknowledge that although we do not have a quorum, the committee meeting is just information. The board will not be acting on anything. It was properly noticed twice. And I wanted to respect those individuals who've shown up for the meeting this evening. All the information is online. People will be able to go and rewatch the YouTube video. But I do want to make sure that we provide that opportunity. We are going to go we aren't going to approve minutes, but we are going to go out of order a little bit and go down to presentations. So 6A, we have the Waukegan Public School District 60 Summer School presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President, Superintendent, board members, colleagues, members of the community. We have a couple team members from ASAP that will be presenting on our summer school plan. I would also like to thank the members from Operations, Finance, and Food Service, Transportation, Safety, because this was a joint effort in terms of planning this work. So everything you see here is really the culmination of months of work and collaboration. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Rice de la Sanchez, and she will begin the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Cesario. Good evening, Board of Education, Board President, Superintendent, colleagues, community. Absolutely, this has been collaboration amongst multiple departments, all of our schools, and we're very proud of what we have so far. In the next slide, Lee. What we have within this is information just on our school locations. We'll see that on our left, these are all of our summer site locations. And then across the rows to the right, these are all of the schools that will be combined at that said location. Next, please. These are our summer school dates and our times, as well as the topic of information. So we're going to see that on the 31st of May and June 1st, this is our professional development for all of our summer school staff, 8:30 to 12:30 p.m. June 5th through June 30th, excluding June 19th for Juneteenth. These are our summer school days, the month of June, Mondays through Thursdays, from 8:30 to 12:30 for pre-K through 8th grade, and 8:30 to 1:30 from 9th to 12th grade for our high school. June 5th to July 10th, this is where we are having, as feedback from our community as well, we're having math advancement in person, and this will be at our middle school. What you see here next is so far our staffing of our FTE for summer school, and you'll see at which location, the number of staff, the number of teachers so far that we have there, and then our LBS 1 staff, our special education supports, our number of paraprofessional, paraeducator supports, our secretary support staff within our office, as well as related service all the way on the right-hand column. What you'll see next, each of our schools also have their own flavor, their own theme, and their own interest levels within their buildings. And so all of our schools submitted a proposal that included priority standards. They have their own field trip opportunities within their school of what they want, what their community and their families want. They're focusing on their student groups, as well as adding that student voice and that student agency for their summer programming. All of the proposals were sent to ASAP, they were scored, provided feedback, and then after that feedback, they resubmitted and they're off and running within their own program. It's really a marriage between our district programming, between academics, reading, math, phonemic awareness, right, and the school-based needs. These are this would be what a day at a glance would be for our schools, just a more intricate schedule. Just as I said, on the left-hand side, you see elementary, phonics, our literacy through science or social science, math, and then that enrichment time is really that school-based piece. What we did as far as front loading, on the next slide, Lee, as far as front loading information for their upcoming year, for example, if we're looking at second grade, we're going to see that second grade, as they're leaving second grade, they're going to be focusing on their upcoming quarter one, third grade unit. So we're front loading information for students that are struggling and are maybe struggling with background information, key vocabulary, and we're giving them that information and preparing them for the upcoming year as far as the needs and the data, the students that are going to be coming to summer school. And we did that all the way K through 8 to align that for them. And then this is just information as far as our dual credit course and for all of our high school students at the end. Yep. Thanks, Eric.
Yes, so Ms. Rice de la Sanchez highlighted some of the things that we're doing for extra help and support for students. I also want to acknowledge several things that we're doing for enrichment and several community partners that are coming through. So at the high school, we've got, if you can go back one slide, at the high school we've got dual credit opportunities where our students can get high school credit and college credit at the same time. We also have advancement classes in math going on, so instead of just credit recovery at the high school, we're doing advancement classes as well. Next slide. And these are some of the organizations. So Bravo is going to be with us again with music lessons at Lewis Middle School. Ravinia, United Way is going to continue to do their Countdown to Kindergarten camp, where young children who are going to kindergarten for the first time and have not been in preschool will get a chance to get acclimated to a school building and learn what going to school is all about in a Countdown to Kindergarten camp. 21st Century Stars is going to have programming. Boys and Girls Club is going to have some programming at one of our schools, Bigger World Foundation. So there are several community groups that are going to be in our buildings as well.
BAM and WOW will also be supporting our summer programs. You can see here the sites where they will be located. The counselors that are currently at those sites will be providing support to students throughout the summer. So again, going kind of above and beyond to support some of our students' needs during our summer program as well. Same thing. Next slide, Lee. Thanks.
As far as our athletics, we're going to continue with our jams. This is our, I believe, within our third year, if I'm right, Coach Urbach. And we have middle school sports. We have stars that are offered for our kiddos. And I'm sure that last bullet point says something, yes. As far as also our feeder sports, so as that is laid out for you all. And thank you. Same thing, yep, exactly. You can keep going, Lee. Yep, thank you. So really the next steps is each of our schools are contacting all of their families. They are getting all of the students' names that they are greenlight and RSVPing for our summer school. It has not been, at least the last 3 years that I remember, and even being a principal, that we have had a wait list, which has been great. And so we're excited about processing all of our students, getting their names in, communicating to our families to join us for this summer. And that's that.
When is the last day to register for summer school?
Well, each of the families, even if a kiddo can't make it, they're calling families. So okay. I'll get the exact date, but I know that it's flexible and it's fluid right now. Okay. Yeah.
Typically, we let it roll for a week and a half or two until into the summer, and then it just gets to a point where by the time they're registered in there, it's just it's diminishing returns from that point. But we keep it open and we keep calling, and if there's a student that needs a program, then we continue to offer that.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just, I want to make sure if I didn't miss it, but Ms. Rice de la Sanchez, you said there's a waiting list right now?
No.
No. Never been.
No, there's not. No. And additionally, we're also going to offer a platform where we can have resources for students who may not be able to attend our summer program because maybe they're doing something else this summer, or maybe they're not in Waukegan. And so it'll be something that we can utilize to continue to sharpen their skills and offer parents an option where they can utilize these resources so that, again, they can sharpen their skills, stay focused, preview materials from the for the next year.
Yeah, Board of Ed, community members, those that are watching online, this I think is an enormous effort. We talk about that, having these opportunities, expending these resources, and making sure that our students are able to take advantage of them. I know we think about summer school as being some type of, nobody wanted to go to summer school. But when I think a cost-effective way for parents to be able to get childcare, but for our students to remain engaged in learning, there is learning loss. There has been learning loss. It's the statistical fact. And so one of the ways that you can reduce that is by involving your students in a summer school program. And again, these aren't boring. I know we've allowed a lot of creativity, and so the principals and the teachers who participate in those summer school programs really enjoy them, and they don't look like a traditional school year, but it will help your students. So I just want to give that plug, and any resources, any information that I can do in order to encourage parents to participate, I will do so. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, if there are no questions for the community, I'm sorry. No? All right. Next up, we had the handbook presentation already, so we got item C, which is the Waukegan High School Athletics Cooperative Proposal.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask Ms. Urbach to come up and really explain that.
Good evening. I'll be really brief. So the co-op came to existence when we sit around the North Suburban Conference AD table, and we always have a hard time fielding teams or full teams to go play these Lake Forest and Lake Zurich. And so it was suggested that we would take to the principals table a co-op proposal and get it approved, which it did, 8-0, and then bring it back to the state and send to the IHSA for approvals. What it basically is when you don't have enough kids to field a team, and programs for us are golf and boys swimming right now. Girls golf, we only have 2. I think we had 2 on the team last year, and they were freshmen, and they were raw and brand new to playing golf. And golf's a little tricky. You can't just throw them out there and, they get embarrassed. And Zion's in the same spot, but we don't want to let that program go. We want to build it. So we came up with the plan. We co-op with Zion and try and build our golf team. We wouldn't lose any coaches because we would take one coach. Zion would take one coach. We would use the white buses to travel back and forth. Boys swimming would be, they have a beautiful pool up there in Zion they just built. It would be nice for our boys to take the white bus, 10 of them, and go swim with the Zion boys. That one we're not 100% positive we'll do because we still have 9 hanging around in the boys' swimming program. So we're going to just try and recruit and keep them here in-house. But golf, we really found it necessary. And I thought it also would be a great opportunity for us to work with Zion, 2 teams together. It shows the community that Zion and us are friendly. We like each other. We're doing things together. So that was the other. I will need board approval for the co-op for Zion, or co-op with Zion in those 2 sports because we have to sign off to the IHSA. So it has to be board approved. It was principal approved. It was at the athletics directors. It was approved. The proposal's been written to the IHSA. I just need approval from the board on that. So that's for the co-op. The second thing was the training proposal. We have athletic trainers shortage. Everywhere struggles to get athletic trainers. This year we only have 1. We've had 2 in the past. ATI could not, we contracted through ATI, through Athletico, through Illinois Bone and Joint. They could not get us a trainer this year. There was none to give. So we had to go to a temporary service which cost unbelievable amount of money. So what we did is I wrote the training description, and I would like to propose that we hire our trainers on staff. They're Waukegan employees. We hire 2 of them. I wrote it. We already have an existing budget. I did up it in the 23-24 budget with So I upped that, and that would be the proposal to service all our athletes. One is just not enough. He runs all over like crazy. And with all the new concussion protocols and the requirements for all our coaches to be concussion trained, our athletes to have a trainer on site for K through 12 for athletes, there's no way he can do it. So we need to get 2 trainers on staff. That's the hope. They would run the impact testing and all that for our concussions.
But open this can of worms. I want to first start by saying I support it, but also, whose colors do they wear?
Right.
She didn't hear me.
It's okay. No, I was just curious.
That's all I have.
So they want to know what colors they compete as. Yeah.
So there's a lot of, with the co-op, there's a lot of, okay, what colors are we going to get? And I said, or what we're going to call ourselves. It would be the Waukegan Zion Co-op. We just do alphabetical. And our colors, well, geez, when we're adding the maroon in there with the purple, green, and gold, we'll be quite the sight.
No, thank you. Again, I think it's important, as you said, to try and keep these programs and allow them to rebuild after the pandemic.
Yeah.
We know it's been slow to get students back, and we'll see the programs at full capacity. But I do support this as being a creative way to keep those students that are interested.
And just so you know, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
But when we recruit, we really recruit. We walk the halls and recruit. We get stuff out in freshman seminar. We get stuff out to socialized teachers. We go to all the middle schools. Like we're going on visits starting May 8th to every middle school, my assistant and I, and we're signing kids up. So we do recruit. We get them out in the freshman orientation when they come for the open houses. It's just golf is a very hard sport around here, and kids don't start it when they're little, and then when they get to be freshmen, it's hard to get them out and interested in it. So we do have the simulator now, so we can put them over there in the simulator and they can hit balls, and we're trying to incorporate it in PE class.
And we talk about it hard because it's expensive, right?
Mhm.
And so we want to make sure that we do have these opportunities, which is another reason why I'm glad that for sports where we don't necessarily have the interest today, that we're figuring out a creative way in order to keep exposing our students.
Anything else?
Thank
you.
Any question? Oh, Ms. Gonzalez?
I did have a question, but I just forgot it as you mentioned that, because it is about access, and I wouldn't want to lose sports opportunities for the students. I think one of the questions that I have is that, is this like, if we approve it, it goes to the state and IHSA, they say, okay, what happens if the program grows enough where we have our own team?
Once we can self-sustain it ourselves, we break away.
Got it, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Awesome. And then D, we do have the paper tutoring contract renewal. I wish that I know a lot of 2 board members particularly had questions about paper who aren't here this evening, but
We've held this item over for some time, and we've also had invited the folks from paper on Tuesday, and then again we have somebody on Zoom tonight.
Okay.
So with your, if you would indulge, I think it would be helpful, and then we can answer those questions one-on-one with the other board members.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
So this presentation, I know we're being videoed right now. Will that also be videoed for the board members to view at a different time? Will
I'm
that be
sorry, I
captured?
couldn't hear your question, Superintendent.
Will that be recorded so that other board members can view this at their leisure at a different time?
Lee, can you record it?
It's on
Yeah,
the YouTube.
so
I
then
didn't know
we're
how that
good.
was working. That's why I was asking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to ask, so Hunter Moreau is here. Yep, he can wave. Yep. Thanks, Hunter. So, and then I'm going to have Jennifer come up and present, and then Hunter's available for questions.
Wonderful.
So just to recap, Lee, if you can pull up the PowerPoint, just to kind of recap, to bring ourselves back, I believe, to last month when we talked about paper. Some of the data points that were asked, really, to see how our students were doing, what students were using it, when students were using it, and also what supports are they seeking when they're using it. So I'm thinking that we can review that right now, Lee. Oh, yeah.
That's what I
Thank
was-
you. I was talking to Nick about this. Okay, so what I could do is I can overview it. Yeah, I can begin. I know Nick has it and he can send it to Lee, but just to talk about the students, the total engaged students, we had 1,400 students. The activities that the 1,400 students are engaging in are over 4,000 activities. And they're seeking live support from a tutor over 3,000 times. They're submitting their own papers. These could be an essay, a math lab, a math paper. It could be anything that they want to upload. It could be a math problem. And so they're submitting submissions 561 times.
Jennifer, can you pull the mic down? So
Yep, absolutely. And the overall minutes in live help sessions are 70,000 minutes, and that's about 23 minutes per session for our students so far. So the overall minutes that tutors are reviewing their writing submissions are 15,000 minutes, and that's about 261 hours of teacher time in giving feedback to students on their essays that does support teachers and less time that teachers are giving feedback within that part of the writing process. So that's just one piece of data. We noticed that activities within paper, they broke it down by grade, 6th through 12th grade. Our 6th graders are using it the most. There's about 1,200 6th graders that have sought activity. Up through 12th grade, right now we have about 91 students that have sought activity. So I believe...
91 in 12th grade, but then, yeah.
Right.
Okay. good.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah.
So Lee, we're on, I'm thinking slide 5. Right there. Yep, thank you, bud. So here at the top left, these are the activities by grade level, so we can see that data chunk, right? We're seeing that our middle schoolers are using it the most, and we're noticing within high school, we'll see the subjects there to the right. We're seeing the subjects specifically physics, so we know our science teachers are using it. Our math is getting the most hits right now, and you can see the sessions for English. The bottom left are the hours students are seeking support. And so we're seeing the highest usage are just during the regular hours of the day, and then therefore also 26% after hours. Weekends are very minimal. And then to the bottom right, these are the languages that are being sought out, the support languages. On the next slide, this breaks it down a little bit more. The supports that the students are seeking by all those grades that we just said, 6 through 12, and then this is broken down now by month, whether it be that live support, the paper feedback, the one-to-one support, and or the learning activities. And then on the right-hand side, these are the students that are returning back, so 1 or more times, 2 or more times, 4 or more times to paper, just seeing the repetitiveness of paper within the kids that are using it. On the last slide here, these are their next steps, and our intended next steps proposed is really thinking about, we train in March. Paper came out, they worked with our high school campuses, and they supported professional development for teachers who have not yet received it, so that they're aware of the supports within their classroom and for their students, and really to promote that. Next year, our intentions are that the paper will support every student's writing standard 5. That's the writing process. That's revising, it's drafting, it's editing, it's feedback. And so our proposal with having common rubrics is if students are providing feedback, number 1, to each other on their own papers, before their paper is submitted for a final draft to their teacher, that we're getting a second round of feedback through paper. Ultimately, that would be every single student within our school that would be receiving that feedback. So that's our intention, especially in working with this and seeing how it can help and how it can fit. That's what we're working right now. We also know that paper will be able to support our ISB computer literacy practice standards for our students. And then also, in speaking with our superintendent of ROE, one of the things that they use paper, or what the intention of using paper, is the possibility for homebound tutoring if we do not have a tutor that is available for any student that might need it for the work that they have within their classes that they're missing for a duration that they're missing. So it's a possibility. It's not the first option. Obviously, we want our teachers to be able to tutor, but it is something that we can use and can tap the shoulder on if need be. And so Hunter is here for additional questions. I know that possibly that were from our board last time.
Yes, I think and I want to be clear, I appreciate you coming, Tyler? Hunter. Sorry. Hunter.
Yeah, okay.
I appreciate you guys coming out. Is my concern, and I don't even think the board members' concerns were primarily around the program as much as it's the utilization, right? And I mentioned that even in my remarks earlier, is we're spending a significant amount of money on these programs, and even if the program is the best tool out there, if we're not using it, then it doesn't matter. So I don't know, board, if you guys have any more specific questions, but
I have, in addition to that utilization piece, like the data that we do have, Ms. Restela Sanchez, is that like 1,200 individual like when it was divided into grade level or sessions, is that like 1,200 plus individual students, or is it like one student doing returning sessions and like using it more than once? Because I think that if a student likes it and it's their thing, they're gonna be like in 10 sessions, but that doesn't mean that we're having the reach necessarily per class that we want.
Right.
And then my thing with every program, and I think we've mentioned it, is like, can we progress monitor that student's academic achievement? Like if they're in a 30-minute or 20-minute session with paper to do their essay review, are they growing from like a C+ to a B+ or whatever? And I don't think we've seen that, but I get, that it has to do with consistency too in the program. So.
Right.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I can address both those points. To address the first one, I think with the plan that we built with the team is going to really help increase the overall utilization of the program. Implementing it into the writing and having every student submit their writing to paper is, of course, going to increase usage over time. And I also think one thing that we've seen after being with this company for almost 6 years now is the first year of any partnership with any of our school districts is always going to be the worst year. And in theory, even though it's not necessarily a bad year, we're going to continue to improve and put in strategies and ways to help get more students onto the platform and get more kids getting the use out of the platform and seeing the benefits from it. And that kind of transitions me into seeing students actually get better grades from utilizing this platform. Our company is transitioning into that sphere and looking at ways on how we can start collecting that data with school districts. Of course, we have to be fully data compliant with the school districts and the laws that are in place for cybersecurity. But once we get to a place where we're able to do that with school districts, we are going to be able to progress monitor students who are actively utilizing the platform day in and day out and help provide that feedback back to the school districts and the admins so that they can go in and grab that data and be able to use it however they wish.
Okay. Yeah. Because my last point too, and for the community, because I think this is an issue of our time, like maybe my time, I don't know, like selfishly and proactively, because we're in an environment where now students and people, they know ChatGPT, like GBT, right? Like there's AI, artificial intelligence, that's kind of being utilized now and kind of in the sphere of knowledge for younger folks to just spew out an essay and not really care about what it takes to create, a 5-paragraph summary of the book that they're reading, right? And for me, I'm willing to invest in tools so that students are engaging with people and learning those critical writing skills, because I think it's important. And I fear that, we're we're not really meeting this generation where they're at. In terms of, you know, if they want to do virtual tutors, let's do that. But again, I think I harken back to board president's point, is that like we need to be seeing the progress monitoring and making sure that our students and our teachers know that this tool is available, so that we're not just spewing money and then it goes nowhere, and then the students still aren't learning what they're supposed to be learning because they have other tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And in working, sorry, Hunter, but in kind of thinking through, okay, how does this permeate now that we know a little bit more about it, and now that because ultimately it's about adding value to every teacher that add value to the students and so on and so forth. It's the snowball piece of it all, right? And so I'm really thinking intricately about this movement that we're moving into, the writing movement within our school. Writing is the ultimate #1 way to show what you know. It is the epitome. And so with that being said, ultimately we want students to be writing more, because we know if they're writing more, the lever of change is reading, is understanding, is conversing, is processing, is synthesizing, and now I can put it on paper, right? So the AI piece of that within itself, in pushing the writing process and feedback and students dialoguing with one another, and being able to push one another's thinking. So by the time that it, and also using paper, by the time that it is getting to the teacher with the rubric, ultimately students have already filled out the rubric and self-assessed themselves. And so as an English teacher in high school, it's daunting to give feedback to every single writing piece, and we want a lot of writing to happen, and that is our movement that's coming up within every department. And so by the time a 9th grader is leaving 9th grade, 10th grade, or so on, they're processing through 6 to 8 writing pieces. Maybe not a formal essay, but writing pieces that are pushing their thinking. And so having this tool is one of those things that we're using it as intricately woven as a fiber of supports for students. That's just forward thinking, and to Hunter's point of just like, okay, how does this work? How does it fit? And for us to wrap our brain around it within our own institutions. And how does this continue with that vertical articulation from 6th grade through 12th grade? And this is moving from 6th grade through 12th grade.
In 2006, my teacher told me that I would not always have a calculator in my pocket, right? And what that's what, right? And that's what is. I think we have to figure out how to give our students the skills to engage with AI, right? I'm in banking and finance and automation and efficiency and using AI. I think this is a new tool. I'm willing to make the investment, but again, I'm willing to. The board members that had the questions unfortunately aren't here this evening, but I do think that, thank you all for the plan. We'll see if the rest of the board supports an extension, but if we do, it has to come with actually making sure that there's training around how to utilize and engage with the tool. And even though every student has a Chromebook, we do know that in our community, due to, systemic issues, is how to utilize that Chromebook so that parents understand how to even engage with it, how to help their students, when their students should be using it and when they shouldn't, is we want to make sure that we communicate that out.
Yep, absolutely.
I think Ms.
So,
Vukovic has a question.
Are there any, Ms. Lindsay?
And Ms. Lensing and Mr. Vukovic.
Well, no, we're talking about a program here where this is done with texting. So there's no live, there's nobody sitting with a child. It's electronically by texting.
Yes, it's on demand.
Right. Now, I addressed the board earlier this evening about transparency and information being made available. And the information that was on that screen up there is not the same information that the board had a month ago and the public had a month ago. So you're going to try to compare things that, what's it called, paper usage overview, teaching and learning. That included the month of March of 2023. What I saw up there. So you're looking at a contract here, and I brought this up at a previous board meeting, that you're going to go back, that if the board approves this contract, it's retroactive, or it says retroactive to March 1st of 2023, but the contract that was in the last board docs showed it as December 1st of 2022. So, you know, you look at the math on this. This is just my Waukegan math. When I look back at the fact that this board approved this, and then, what was it, in 2021, you prepaid $259,000. And based on the usage that was available, not tonight's numbers, looking at last month's numbers, which probably included February, but you were spending $204 per hour that children in this district were accessing that program. So it's highly underutilized, and it's very expensive.
I have 4 general and specific points. So I'm just a bit confused, and if you can clarify your language. You said repeatedly it's our intention, and on the presentation you said every student will. So can you expand on how we get from intention to every student will?
Yeah, thank you for that. So as far as the intention goes, as we're building out our common rubrics and our writing vision within all our departments, 6 through 12, it will be a part of our writing process, right? If indeed that this does continue to be our tool and our resource, right? That part of it with paper. So that's the will, and the intention is that if it is a part, it's an if then. If it is a part of it, then it will be that. That will be a part of it, yeah.
Okay. And then I saw in terms of the demographics, the seniors are the lowest usage group, but they should be having the most rigorous coursework. So how are we going to ensure that it's being utilized by that population?
Well, when we really were digging into the usage this year, and then kind of just starting within this project with my partner Clarence, we started having monthly meetings with all of our school leaders, and how does this message permeate within your school and in your school building. Like I said, we also had our March just last month, and we see the highest usage then, because I think even more teachers learning about it and the opportunities that it can provide as a tool within their class. So I see the highest usage in March, and I don't disagree. It's just the permeating and reaching more folks, right? And especially if this continues, and I would say at one point it's learning the product like I shared, and then when it continues, we just get better. When you know better, you get better, and that's really the truth of it. Yeah.
And then this question is directed to Hunter. How long has Paper been working with school districts?
So for about 7 years, we are 9 years old as a company, but we really only started getting into the school district sphere about 7 years now. And ever since then have continued to evolve what the product looks like. And really the way that evolvement has happened is through getting feedback from districts and our partners, and what do we need to do, teachers really listening to what is needed and trying to build that product out to suit those needs.
So I just want some clarification. If you've been working with school districts for 7 years, why hasn't the data sharing piece been addressed and fully formed out?
And by data sharing, you mean the progress monitoring?
Yes.
Because school districts are hesitant to give access to grade books when it comes to sharing different sets of data. So it's been very tricky for us to be able to have we have school districts that do allow us, but we also have others that don't. So it goes case by case.
So there are protocols in place. Waukegan would just need to know how to go through those channels appropriately to get it done.
Absolutely, yeah. We can
And
make
was
that
this
happen.
presented to them when Paper was first approached to have a contract?
I believe that we had a small discussion about it, but we were focusing on the launch and the rollout, and it never sort of formulated from there.
Okay. It's just the community keeps coming and wanting to see the data, and while we want to try to minimize the testing that we do to our students, because in my personal opinion, school should be for critical and creative thinking, I think this should definitely have been a priority when we first launched it. That's just my personal opinion. The last part that I have, and then I'll give up the microphone, is our students overall cannot read and write. Our English language arts scores are very poor. So our student comprehension of written language and even verbal language is going to be difficult if all of this is through text. So what sort of examples do you have to help address when a student's comprehension scores with written language are low, how you can still meet their needs through this text format?
Yeah, absolutely. So approximately 6 months ago, we made all sessions available to be done through voice and voice notes and voice text. So they're actually able to either start a session via text message if that's what the student's more comfortable doing, or they can do it through voice notes and voice interaction. So it's still not face-to-face. It's as if I was turning off my video right now and we were speaking this way, or sending in individual voice notes, and then the tutor would respond via that way and that format as well. So however that the student starts that session, that's how they're going to be interacted with by one of our tutors. So we have the ability to do that as well now.
Right, and if their verbal language comprehension skills are low, how do you address it then?
Well, then we would need to work with the team to identify which students those are and figure out the best ways to be able to interact and how those students are most comfortable interacting. I would recommend if those students really do struggle with our program, I know Waukegan has a lot of good in-person tutoring stuff available to those students. Let's maybe focus on getting those students the help that they need in that sphere and focus on the other students who are more comfortable using our platform.
Yeah, so the reason I'm asking these questions is because most of our students in the district are in this position.
Okay.
So if we want this wide rollout to go, we need to start working on the base skills so that we can use this for the higher level learning, is my intention.
I just want to respond to that really quickly because I just want to remind everybody that this is another option to use. It may not be for every student, but it is an option for our students. We want to try to vary, and the largest portion of the budget was to our teachers, the tutoring budget. We did that intentionally because we know that that's most effective, and that's what's research based too. In person, one-on-one, small group, and then large group tutoring is in terms of effectiveness, right? So, but again, it's another option for our students to use. I just want to make that clear because what you're stating is right, that there are several students that, or there are students that may not be able to access this. And so, we'll keep working with paper to see what we can do, but I also do think it's important to note that we have to address all of the students as well.
No, I agree. We should definitely address all of the students. It's just, are we being fiscally responsible if we're paying $204 for each of these sessions?
Yeah. Well, I think when you're looking at it through just the lens of the actual support and academic support and the tutoring, yeah, it's $204 per session, but then you got to factor in the amount of essays that have been reviewed. You got to factor in the amount of math missions and math live sessions that were happening as well. Asynchronous sessions that happen. So if you're looking at just the tutoring, it's $204, but incorporate a lot of the other costs and then 261 hours given back to teachers. That cost does definitely come down, in my opinion.
And then I have a question, but it's not really for Mr. Hunter. It's more, or Hunter, I guess. It's more for the school board and the administration in ASAP. Is we've experimented with a different tutoring program last year, correct? And you didn't like it.
That was varsity tutors,
right?
And then now we're working with Hey Tutor,
right?
Yes.
No, but we didn't use paper. We used paper this school year, correct? Did we use it last school year also?
The paper was another option, as I was saying to Ms. Lensing, it's another option, but it was for on-demand. It's again, because the question came up about progress monitoring, and one of the things that I said was, there's no pre and there's no post. It's on demand. A student could use it once, they could use it 100 times. Mm-hmm. They could use it for math, they could use it for a paper. So it was just an option to assist students when they needed it. Mm-hmm. If the teacher wasn't available, it was in the evening. And so that was just another piece that we were using to help students, given the climate that we were in at the time. Mm-hmm. And we'll do a full analysis and talk about the effectiveness. Personally, I think that the feedback that's been presented here has been really good, and we incorporate that feedback. But I also think that it is an option. And for me, that's how I'm looking at it, that it is an additional option for our students to use. If we find that it's not effective, then we'll have that discussion in-house. I do think that the intentionality with assigning it or utilizing it within the writing implementation, that'll help twofold. One, with the writing process, but also to spread the familiarity of paper and how it can also be utilized for math. But I think what the point that, and I'll let you speak, I don't want to make an assumption about what you're going to say. So, but we have to constantly look at the effectiveness. Varsity Tutors wasn't very effective, the feedback wasn't good, and we ended that. Hey Tutor, both you and Mr. Vukovic have brought up the fact that onboarding people, and it has been an issue, and we talked to that. I just want to be very clear about that too. We're not paying for anything that we're not using with Hey Tutor, and it was the same with Varsity. So it was a rather large contract, but we didn't pay all of those monies out. That we only paid for what we used, and it's the same with Varsity Tutor. It was the same with Hey Tutor. So if it's not effective, you know, we went back with Varsity Tutor and we told them A, B, C, and D. They tried to work with us, and we said, you know what, it's too much, it's too late, right? And so we ended it with them. And that'll be the same conversation we have with Hey Tutor. But in terms of paper, I really feel like you've brought up the usage piece, and I agree with you 100%, and we needed to rectify it. And this may look a little bit different because some of the asks from yourselves in the audience, not just Mr. and Mrs. Vukovic, but some of the board members, we had to crunch some of the numbers a little bit more. And the usage did go up because we were focusing more on some of that. So I think that's really good feedback that we're taking from these meetings.
I agree. The only problem is that we have now, I don't know how much we paid for Hey Tutor this year, how much we paid for Varsity Tutors last year, and now up until March, there wasn't much. I mean, according to the difference between what's really on the board docs from a month ago to now, that we're just, that's $200,000. That's a lot of money. So it's not like, oh well, you know, if they're not using it, well, why weren't they using it? Now it appears that the teachers didn't know about it, and so now all of a sudden in March, it's like, hurry up, guys, you got to do it because we want to get this program approved. That really does not sit right with me when we've gone now. This will be, if we approve this for next year, that's 3 to 4 years that we have been experimenting with different programs. They don't work, or we didn't roll it out right, or we didn't make people understand. Why can't we just invest in personnel that you can train, that can be here? And I'm back again to the reading specialists and the math specialists. Why this is just over and over and over again, and it's like, oh, but it was, you know, we didn't have to pay. Well, how much did we pay Hey Tutor last year? How much did we pay Varsity Tutors the year before? But this one is $200,000. You're paying up front whether they use it or not. That's, to me, fiscally irresponsible. And so I'm assuming it's our tax money. I'm assuming the school board members must feel the same way, that it's not just a, oh, well, you know, if that didn't work, we'll try this. Well, if that, after this many years, how about going back to what worked, even though people say it didn't? I don't know. I'd like to see the data on that. Why we keep on just, oh, let's try another one next year. Oh, this year, oh, gosh, it's now April.
So it didn't occur like that, and I think one of the things that we did, and I explained the process, and I'm happy to explain it again. So we were moving out of the pandemic, moving from hybrid to in-person instruction, and looking for ways to make sure that we were recapturing some of the learning loss. And tutoring, the research, we use the research. And again, the high dosage tutoring was the best way to do that. The majority of the monies that we allocated were to be in-person tutors, our own teachers and paraprofessionals. And so the other pieces were Varsity Tutors, which came highly regarded. And it was, we vet all of these. And the issue was, part of it was with the timing. When that we went back and forth here for months. It was presented in May of that year, and it didn't get approved until almost the end of October. And then by that time, we went to trying to hire people, onboard people. We didn't onboard and hire people until December. And so you talk about the effectiveness and the usage of the dollars. we were trying to be as effective as possible, but when the usage is not, or when we hire in November and December, it becomes really hard to make something, build momentum with something. We still evaluated it, and we felt that it wasn't where we wanted to go, so we moved away. And so Hey Tutor was another option. And so again, it was another highly rated tutoring service. It was difficult to get those in-person people, just as it is difficult to get paras, social workers, teachers. And so we were evaluating these things. We did have an implementation plan, but again, part of it was stifled by the inability to hire staff members. And so you continually mention bringing in more reading specialists. I don't disagree with you. It is difficult to find reading specialists as well. And so I think if we could do that, we would. And what we've relied on recently was our teachers. Our teachers have increased the amount of tutoring over this past year, and that's what we've relied on most. I do think that it's good to have tools available, and we want to be fiscally responsible, and that's part of what we do in terms of presenting this and being as transparent as possible. And yes, Mr. Vukovic, it is a different presentation, but the asks were different from when it was initially brought up, which was a couple months ago, and we were asked to table it so that we could engage in some of these questions, find out some of the answers, work with paper, and try to come back with all of the answers. I think you're absolutely right. If we could bring in more people, that is the most effective way. Again, going back to what the research says, one-to-one, small group, high dosage tutoring in person is most effective. I won't argue that. You're absolutely right with that point. Finding the resources is the most difficult part, and I think no one will disagree with that. So.
Can I say something also to supplement what Dr. Cesario is saying that I think is kind of, we've definitely heard it before, but it kind of gets lost in this back and forth about one resource is that like our teachers are still burnt out, right? Our staff is still burnt out. And it's not a matter of like, oh my gosh, paper is the best tool out there, let's spend the money. Absolutely not. I think with any internal and external tools, it's about consistently improving them to get the outcomes that we do want to see our students have. But if not the teacher and our internal staff, because they're at capacity, then what tool do we have available to our students? Because not every student is a part of Waukegan College. Not every student is a part of STARS or whatever program will help them get tutoring. And I agree, maybe some of our students, a lot of our students aren't at grade level reading, but they are digitally literate. And that's what makes this program different. Some students thrived in virtual learning. They preferred that, which is so weird. I mean, I would never, but that's why we have different options for different students. And I know it's uncomfortable for our staff, especially some of our veteran teachers, to go with a tool that they're not familiar with because it's online. Maybe they're not familiar with AI. Maybe they're not familiar with this kind of like virtual texting tool, this software help. But some of our students are do have the capacity to understand it and engage with it. And what we want as a board is just to see the numbers go up if we're spending the money anyway, because the students that are using it are getting something out of it. But we need to progress monitor. And I think the ask maybe for paper and the admin team is to get started on the progress monitoring, because those numbers, that data is going to be the strongest champion of this program. It's not going to be us convincing people to use the tool. It's going to be, okay, which students are actually getting help from the paper tutoring.
I'm going to gently push back on the digital literacy. Mm-hmm. So written language comprehension is not just on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. It's off of the screen as well. Yeah. So if they cannot get those words off of the screen to where they understand them, they're not going to be able to best use this tool that's available, and the person on the other end is going to have additional supports. Mm-hmm. Yes, one-on-one is the absolute best. Small group, yes. So while if it is decided that we're investing in paper again, I think the community wants to hear more, addressing your point about burnout. How are we supporting our teachers so that they have the capacity, whether emotional or any other aspect that is hindering them from doing it now? How do we get them to a point where they can return back to this? So I just want to make sure that that is also going to be discussed so that the community and the staff know that that is still a priority and we're not going to keep relying on Band-Aids.
Great point. Yeah, and I think we always talk about this is we're talking about paper now, but they are all interrelated. So one of the questions that I like to use is not either or making a choice, it's and, right? And so we will, again, I don't know how the board will vote, right? But if they do support bringing paper back, Mr. Vukovic is 100% correct. We have to see the utilization go up. I tell you that all the time is the banker, finance, capitalist guy in me. I don't hold paper accountable to our lack of utilization. That's a Brandon Ewing thing. That is an internal conversation that, again, I've now said it publicly. I'm acknowledging that point. Is once we dug into the data and we see the lack of utilization, I'm not saying we should move away from the program. We go back to the people that recommended it and say, how are we going to make this better? And then to Ms. Gonzalez's point, as we progress monitor, if we find that it's ineffective, I wouldn't say that we shouldn't try things, right? The core is hiring people.
Yeah.
And we also need to be able to utilize additional tools and resources as education continues to evolve, as hiring challenges will not go away, they will continue, right? So that's kind of my comment is it's an and. I don't know how the board approach. I do appreciate paper coming out this evening and taking these questions. Another thing about dealing with these tools is responsiveness. A lot of times with companies and organizations, it's not perfect when it rolls out, but are they committed to continually improving? Are they committed to working with the organization? Are they listening to feedback and implementing it? Those are what I look for in a partner, is because if any one person had the silver bullet, every kid in America would be reading at grade level. And what we're seeing is that is not the case. And there are creative tools that are popping up, but do they fit with Waukegan Public Schools, right? And so I don't see this as, personally, I don't see it as being fiscally irresponsible. I do think we have to. The accountability question is, again, when we bring in a product, when we bring it, and being honest, right? I appreciate Dr. Cesario's candor. When we debate programs and the board holds it over, a lot of times you'll hear me say, what is the impact if we hold over? And many times there is an impact to taking additional time. So the both and is administration present, presentations that answer questions. Board members get those questions to the administration in time that they can respond, and then make decisions so that we can be ready to go. So I'm glad we're having this conversation in May. So July 1st, new fiscal year. We if approved, we can roll out. And I do know, like I said, my son's school, they got information even at open house, right, back in the fall. But for the parents who didn't come to open house, or those that didn't have the opportunity, again, there has to be a campaign around education in order to make sure that we are getting the most bang for our buck, which is what the taxpayers are asking. So with that, I'd like thank you, Hunter, for coming out, and thank you, Paper, and thank you, community, for the questions and the conversation. It is 9:08, so I did not meet my goal of 9 o'clock, but it was a worthwhile discussion. We're going to run through the other items which were listed there as information, if we can get the agenda back on the screen.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. So just like before, I'll call these items are there. They have the attachments. Go through them. 5A, Whittier International Baccalaureate Professional Development Request. B, request to renew Youth Guidance BAM and WOW. We had ample discussion on that, so I want to keep going. The C, request to renew Elevate K through 12 for school year 23-24. D, International Society for Technology and Education Professional Development. E, Association for Middle School Education Conference. F, International Baccalaureate Leading and Managing Teams Workshop. G, Branching Minds District-Wide MTSS Platform. Renewal of yearly Microsoft Office and Server licensing. I, Carnegie Learning Math, grades 6 and 7 accelerated textbook national version. J, Carnegie Learning Summer National Institute. Information is there. See no questions. K, AP Annual National Conference 2023. L, Advanced Placement Summer Professional Development. Yeah, of course. Do we have a microphone in back? I'm sorry. So you okay?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kristen Maione, and I've been teaching in the district since 1999, and I've been teaching AP Bio since 2010. I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to just kind of present information about the AP Bio conference. AP Bio, the course was modified by College Board in 2020, but unfortunately, none of us have been able to go to any conferences since 2019. And if this is approved, it would be the first time that we as a team, the three of us, would be able to have this opportunity to share this amazing learning experience. At the conference, it's a week-long institute, and we would be engaged in 30 hours of content-rich training with other experienced AP Bio teachers, and that would help us to strengthen how we teach biology, AP Biology specifically. This includes content delivery, pedagogy, and features of AP Classroom, which is an online resource based on the new course exam description. Another exciting point, and one of the reasons why we chose to go to this institute, was that the facilitator is the former president of the National Association of Biology Teachers. She's also a table, question, and AP exam leader, and she wrote 2 chapters of the lab manual that we use in our curriculum. So that would be really exciting to get her hands-on, experience and knowledge. Our goal is to grow our students and increase our AP scores, or their AP scores. And in order to do this, we need to continue our professional development and to evolve and improve our craft. So, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing as there are no questions, then we have item L, Advanced Placement Summer Professional Development. Oh, I'm sorry, that was L. M, Updated Anatomy and Physiology Paper and Online Text for WHS Biology course. No questions. N, Data Viz Certification Program Participation Request. And O, the Ron Clark Academy for North Elementary School. Ms. Lindsay.
I think just the resounding concern anytime someone goes to development like this is how is it going to be disseminated amongst the district staff, where other schools could as well use some of this exposure and this information. So when we send people to these types of conferences, are they providing a summary to the board of what they learned? Are we looking for opportunities on how to expand this further within the district? I think these are just things that we were constantly asking for, and it would just be nice to see that we have some change in that area.
For this one?
And I don't.
For this item?
Yeah, for this item as an example.
Yeah. This isn't the first school that has gone to Ron Clark. I've heard really good things about the conference.
Is it the last one? Are we talking about?
Oh yes, Ron Clark Academy for North Elementary. But also the greater question is, how's information shared? I'll briefly speak to one of them is and we go back and forth on this, is when we have teachers and administrators that are going to conferences. This one is a specific part of North School's SIP plan. So while it is great to share, not all schools have the same strategy, right? At Cook, for example, part of what they implemented was the house model. So we've had teachers from Cook go and visit and do that type of training. All the schools haven't embraced that. Some have, some want to get on board. So I think that's part of it. We can talk about a board. What are we looking for from an accountability mechanism? But I know what I've said is I want them to go get the information and bring it back and expand it in that community. How that's done, I don't know if personally I would want to see a report out. I think our meetings are already very long, but if there was an accountability mechanism that we can think through. But again, I think what we wanted to see was more of our frontline staff being exposed to these opportunities, because again, we know there's a direct impact to what you gain and implementing that in your classroom. And so through the SIP model, there are specific conferences and principals are particularly looking for opportunities to get their staff their exposure so that they can talk about it through their building. So I'll let you.
No, that one specific. That's why I asked if you were speaking specifically about O, because that's specifically related to their school improvement plan and several of their goals. So that is specific to, they chose that based on what their goals are. But in terms of the other pieces, we want to make sure it's aligned to the goals, it's aligned to initiatives. I think you'll see a commonality in some of the professional development that comes through. And in the information with the wind trainers, part of what they're doing, there is a rationale that they're going in to refine their skills so that they can work with teachers to implement. Something that you had mentioned earlier was looking at how are we using Chromebooks. Mm-hmm. Not just that we have Chromebooks, but how are we using them as tools. So that would be one thing that they would be bringing back, is in terms of a train the trainer piece. I do think that that's one of the things that we do in ASAP, is there has to be a legitimate reason for going, and there has to be a way that you're disseminating this information when you come back. Mm-hmm. So I think it depends on the type. If it's local, if it's specific to that school, like board president said, then it's aligned to their SIP, and it's the area superintendent approves that. It comes to me. We have a discussion about it. And I asked a lot of questions because it's one that I think we've seen it once before, but it was specific to their SIP, their school improvement plan.
Yeah, and there's also, schools are in different places at different times and working on different initiatives, and this must fit in Nicole Lumberger's SIP plan. And as Dr. Cesario said, the area superintendent vets it to see how does it fit within the SIP and how it will be brought back and utilized with the staff. So every school is working on different initiatives based off the community they serve, and principals have some autonomy as long as it's tied to the SIP and approved by the area superintendent.
So are you saying that our schools overall wouldn't be working towards collective responsibility, strengthening students and teacher relationships, and building community?
No, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
If that's the overarching aspect of it, that would be beneficial for all schools, is my point.
Right, and I completely agree with you, but there are some schools that may not choose to use this model to work on that endeavor. They may be utilizing different initiatives. That doesn't mean that they're not working on this. They're just choosing a different approach based off their staff and their professional development plan for the year.
If we have the accountability piece, right, that Mr. Ewing had brought up, and finding a way to disseminate so it's not an added presentation, but it's maybe available through the district website so that the community, other schools can take a look like, oh, what did they learn over here? That's interesting. We can create more collaboration within the school district, because the more we isolate people and set them on their own agenda, we are disserving our students.
So
These
can-
discussions occur also in the
Yeah.
principal meetings. No, I think it's a good point, and I think that's not something that you would be aware of if you weren't talking about it in a. But a lot of the principal meetings, these discussions, especially when we're talking at SIP and we're reviewing SIPs and we're talking about goals, and like the superintendent said, you're right. There are similar goals and everyone's aspiring, but they're all at different levels.
Right.
So, and part of it too is what the teacher voice in terms of the instructional leadership team, what they're researching, what their choice is, what their voice is, engaging in that. And again, it's unique to the culture of that building and where they're at with certain initiatives and certain goals. So, but they do talk about their goals. They do share resources, and we could formalize it a little bit more in some of those meetings. And that's something that we've been talking about, and creating larger PLCs, professional learning communities, so that we're clustering schools and sharing these resources. And we're actually going to be showing that later in May, talking about how we're not reorganizing necessarily, but realigning some of our resources to maximize them and be more collaborative.
And one thing we heard from our principals early on in our tenure, that one-size-fits-all approach does not work, and they wanted more autonomy to work with their teachers within their school and their school community to build professional development that was relevant for them, and where they were at within the work. So depending on what levers they're pulling within their SIP. So they do have some autonomy, it's just not free will. But everybody may not choose to go to this type of PD. I know Cook did, but other people take different approaches.
I think the thing is that collaboration doesn't mean you have to have a uniform approach, but collaboration gives you access to information, and disseminating information prepares our leaders in these buildings better, and the community wants that collaboration to happen and that dissemination of information to happen.
We hear you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one quick point that I think was lost and is a question that regularly comes up, is that are teachers able to go to these conferences? And like for this conference, and why I shared out that it is popular is because that collaboration did happen. Maybe we didn't state it in the boardroom, but that's how people are learning about this conference, because it's so great. And there's 3 teachers, a first grade teacher, a fourth grade teacher, a support teacher, a social worker, and the instructional coach, in addition to the principal and AP going. And I think Ms. Q had presented about a conference that she attended with her teachers. So people are learning about it, but and I get it, I want everyone to kind of be in like a similar cadence, but I would be worried if the same clusters of folks from different schools were going to the same conference all at one time. And I think that's why we see these like one-offs of like, this school is going to this thing first. Later on in a couple months, it'll be a different school for PD. And that kind of speaks to the scheduling, but maybe when the cohorts start to happen that Dr. Cesario kind of like mentioned, maybe that would be better. But the reason that people are like doing this is because I've heard, I don't even know everything that they do, but like the techniques that the teachers use as a result of this are amazing. And I wouldn't know unless I went into the classroom, and that we obviously can't show, but maybe it would be something like a video campaign that we could do around the conference.
Yeah, and in no way am I trying to imply that they shouldn't go or this isn't worthwhile. The concern is just sharing is caring.
Yeah.
Yep, and I think that's something we do hear from the community is again, I won't beat that point. I think we have to do a better job, but I also am excited that our frontline, we are talking about more frontline staff being able to go and have these opportunities.
Well, that's my point. I think it should be more. It should be more frontline staff going to these, and not always the same teachers going constantly to the same ones. And my other point to this is, as a parent in the thing, with the school is all teaching different things, like you said, to the demographics of the area they're in or what they're going through. But as a parent, I can't choose what school my kid goes to. If I like the program at the other side of our district and what they're teaching better than the school that my kid's assigned to, I don't get the choice to send them to that school instead. So a lot of this stuff needs to be taught across a lot of our elementaries, a lot of our schools, because it's not fair to the kids or to the parents when everything's being taught differently to the students.
Thank you, Mr. Sabecki. I think that's always something that's a challenge. I do say what happens at one school may not fit a different school, but we also have to recognize the fact that we have a transient community, right? There are voluntary transfer programs. There are different things that we have options, but your overall point is a valid and valued one. With that, I would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. McBride, second by Ms. Gonzalez. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? You can stay. Meeting is adjourned.
Mr.